My name is Brent Christensen. I am an engineer with St. Paul Public Works in our bridge division. I'm also the project manager for the Kellogg 3rd Street Bridge Replacement Project. This is the public meeting. It's 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, June 26th, 2024. Today's public meeting is to present the final design highlights of the bridge project, to share anticipated construction schedule, and to also share things like traffic detouring and project expectations over the next period of years. As Lisa mentioned, the presentation will be followed by time to ask and answer questions. We will also be posting the presentation as well as responses to questions on our project website in the next couple of weeks around the holiday here. So with that, I will get started by just sharing a couple of slides that get into the new bridge design. So for those of you who may have attended previous project meetings or looked at our project webpage in the past, you'll see this cross section, which shows the new bridge deck. What we are providing on the new bridge is two 12-foot wide shared use trails, one on the north and one on the south side of the bridge. For those of you familiar with the existing bridge, the existing bridge built in 1982 provided only one 10-foot trail or sidewalk on the south side of the bridge. One of the benefits of our bridge replacement project is that we are able to provide better pedestrian and bicycle accommodations by adding the wider trail, the shared use trail, also to the north side of the bridge, providing a more direct connection between CHS Field, Downtown Farmers Market, Mears Park, and other destinations on that north side and across to the Dayton's Bluff neighborhood. As I get started, I'd also like to just share the overall project limits. The Kellogg 3rd Street Bridge starts just east of Lafayette Street, outside of Union Depot in Lower Town. It carries Kellogg Boulevard to the northeast up to Mounds Boulevard. Mounds Boulevard, as you're likely aware, is a direct connection point with the interstate I-94. There's a exit and entrance ramp just to the southeast of the intersection of Kellogg and Mounds. The bridge also crosses over local streets, including Commercial Street, over the top of Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary, where there's currently a construction project underway for a Native American Dakota Lakota interpretive center called Wakan Tipi. The bridge also passes over a very busy railroad Y, so several independent operating railroads operate tracks here through the project site. On the west side of the project, we also have a section of roadway between Broadway Street and Lafayette Street that will be partially reconstructed with our project. I'll be talking about that in a little bit. And some other area highlights I've got noted here, just area destinations with CHS Field, the Farmers Market off of Broadway Street. To the north of the project is I-94 and East 7th Street, which we'll also be talking about in a minute when we cover detours. Going back to that project bridge section, we've got a 4-lane road between barrier in the center of the bridge. Again, the two barrier protected shared use trails on either side. And one of the highlights of design was the use of these taller precast, pre-stressed concrete beams. This allows us to more efficiently span over some of those facilities beneath the bridge. So, for example, whereas today we have piers in the center of I-94 and in the center of a series of railroad tracks, the new bridge will be able to be constructed to clear span those facilities, which greatly improve aspects of safety on those rail and road facilities. One of the highlights of the new bridge is our attention to art and aesthetics, which came out during design phase in several forms. We had several public artists involved with the project. Seitu Jones, in particular, was the designer of sections of custom railing. You can see a rendering on this slide showing one of those custom panels where our outside bridge barrier will basically duck down to allow for some custom panels, much of them inspired by elements that were brought up during public participation, like the river or the ecology, the environment. Some also inspired by the neighborhoods on the either side of the bridge, Lower Town Historic District, and also Dayton's Bluff. Below the bridge, we also incorporated aesthetics into the piers, the supports, the columns that support the bridge. It may be difficult to see in this slide on your screen, but we have these subtle patterns incorporated into those bridge piers. These were developed with coordination with the Dakota and Lakota representatives on the Wakan Tipi project, and we also brought on a Lakota artist, Diane Whitehawk, to provide more aesthetic on the piers surrounding the new Wakan Tipi Interpretive Center. So we're very excited to see some of this new public art incorporated into the new bridge. Moving on to construction schedule. So the burning question right now is, when will construction start? When will the bridge close? When will Kellogg Boulevard be detoured? What I can say today is that we have a signed contract as of yesterday. Our bridge contractor, Lunda Construction, has reconstructed numerous bridges across the city, across the metro, across really the Midwest for decades. So we have an experienced bridge contractor. They have indicated to us that they would like to get started as soon as possible. And there are a lot of constraints, other agreements that are necessary to be put into place before that construction can occur. But Lunda is working, very quickly and diligently to establish that those agreements, and also to establish a firm start date with us. Again, a moving target because our contract was really just signed yesterday. But we do estimate that the bridge construction will start in around 3 to 6 weeks. So that could be around the end of July or into August, the last half of July into August. We also know that Kellogg Boulevard will be closed. It must be closed for the removal and reconstruction of the bridge. And so we will have these detours into effect for the majority of our project. The overall project duration will be about 3 years. This is the longest bridge in St. Paul, the longest city-owned bridge in St. Paul, and one of the tallest. So that puts our estimated end date for the project out into summer of 2027. This slide also just kind of steps through some of the major construction events, starting with demolition, and then foundations and substructures. So working from the ground up in 2025. We anticipate that we would be hauling and placing these large concrete beams in 2025, heavy into the deck, the railings, and the lighting in 2026. and really trying to wrap up that amount of construction in order to reopen Kellogg Boulevard late in 2026, if at all possible, saving that cleanup and landscaping, a lot of the other underbridge work for the first part of 2027. So we do recognize that this will be an impactful project, to say the least. Traffic with other projects that have been going on throughout downtown and the East Metro, including Gold Line, Bus Rapid Transit, have certainly caused a lot of hardship to individuals, a lot of inconvenience, traffic congestion. As Gold Line is wrapping up now in the next several months and planning service opening next year, we will see other traffic patterns and shifts, other traffic congestion. Our traffic engineers and our project team will be monitoring traffic around the project. But really, we have limited options. Kellogg Boulevard, the bridge is there to span all of those obstructions. And the nearest and best detour for vehicle traffic will be via East 7th Street, generally posted all the way to Robert, although we understand, local access will occur throughout Lower Town. We'll offer 2 bike and pedestrian detours with some public signage or other notice that kind of gives people an indication of the different alternatives available to them from either end of the project. One of those detours, of course, would just follow the vehicle and ped detour, kind of staying on top. We call it, East 7th Street or to Robert or to Lower Town. The other alternate detour that would be available through most of the project is actually to take the trail from Mounds Boulevard on the east side, to take that down Commercial Street over to 4th Street and then into Lower Town via Prince Street, kind of behind CHS Stadium. That's shown in green on this slide. We also recognize the impact that this project has, to traffic congestion in and around Lower Town. This slide tries to depict the roadways that are around the project and intended to be open and available through most of the project. I do note that between Broadway to Lafayette on Kellogg Boulevard, we do have partial road reconstruction. And so during that period of time, the contractor will need to restrict at least kind of one side of the road at a time. That may also impact how parking lot access is made to the parking lots for Tilsner Building, Union Depot, and some of the other lots directly off of Kellogg. It is our expectation and our plan that as we move forward through this year into next year, we do not anticipate having that closure in effect. We anticipate that you can see in green that these roads will be continuing to be available to maintain access to these parking lots. Something that I've noted on the next slide really is that the contractor has a responsibility to maintain access to the parking lots in Lower Town, to maintain access to residents or businesses. There may be some inconvenience, there may be some one-way access, but that is a condition that we do intend to be continuous through the project. Some of the other expectations that I would share are typical of construction projects. So, traffic delay and congestion on detour routes. Again, it's just, unfortunately a reality of shifting traffic volume. Many folks, I'm sure, will find their own ways around the project. However, at least on the posted routes, we do recognize that there is, work at some point planned on East 7th or on Robert. And there's really no other alternatives for our project but to use those roads for detours. On Commercial Street in particular, and also in those blocks right around the project, say at Lafayette Kellogg intersection, we should also expect there to be short-term closures or obstructions during certain work events. For example, when a large piece of equipment or a beam is being swung into place or carried across the site, we will flag and close that roadway for some portion of time. Underneath the bridge, again, when there's overhead work like forming is being placed or the beams are being set, there will be a need for short-term closures of a day, a night, or a weekend to perform those activities and just keep the public as well as the crews safe. There's always construction-related nuisances, additional noise, especially as we're driving foundations for pile. One advantage, I think, is that except for the abutments on either end of the bridge, a lot of this work is taking place over Bruce Vento. Noise does travel, but the intensity of noise would be greatly reduced before reaching many of the businesses and residences. Also, there is a need for occasional night and weekend work. For example, MnDOT will only allow bridge demolition over the freeway spans overnight and weekends. It's also very likely that placing beams over the freeway will only be allowed during nights and weekends. There's other activities on other parts of the project that similarly will need to occur at night. And so we will inform, those adjacent businesses or residents of activities that are kind of out of the normal as we move ahead with construction. Last note there is just emphasizing that that maintaining of access to parking lots and buildings in Lower Town. Lisa, that concludes my slides. I'd be happy to maybe take your services on as the moderator here and provide me with questions that may have come up in the chat while I was speaking. And I also just want to say one more time, thank you for attending today's meeting. Thank you for your interest in the project, your patience as we get underway. I really do appreciate everybody taking the time out of their evenings today to join us and talk about the project.
Great, thanks, Brent. We do have a couple questions, but just to remind people, if you want, go ahead and there's a little chat bubble up at the top. If you push that, you can send a question on anything you either on the presentation, this project, and we'll address it that way. There's also a little hand that if you push that, it will say you're raising your hand, and then we will call on you, unmute you, and you can ask your question verbally if that's what you prefer. So go ahead, write something in the chat or raise your hand and we'll call on you. But yes, Brent, we have a couple questions. First one is from Stephanie, and will the ped and bike tour via Commercial Street accommodate a scooter?
Sure, thanks for the question. So I will start by saying that I am not familiar or an expert on the subtle regulations that may be surrounded by scooter use, and use of scooters on sidewalks, etc. Now, I will say that under the bridge, in particular in the green route that's being shown on the screen, that's not a central business district, so there would not be those types of restrictions on sidewalks. So let me try to answer that just by saying that I think that both of these routes, the bike ped detours on 4th Street or on 7th Street, are intended to be accessible routes, meaning that for bikes or peds, they would follow in place sidewalk facilities or trail facilities in the case of this under the bridge Commercial Street route. Major portion of that is kind of a off-street trail. So in each of those cases, and I would say this pertains to bikes as well, kind of that, cautious operation of a bicycle on a sidewalk or a scooter on a sidewalk, um, yielding to pedestrians, that both of those routes would accommodate that type of mode of transportation. Um, Now you would of course anticipate the normal amount of kind of sidewalk joints, pedestrian ramps, etc. Some of those have been upgraded to today's standards of accessibility and some are not. But in each case, yeah, I would say that either of these routes should have an adequate facility, depending on how the user intends to use the scooter on road or on sidewalk.
Thanks, Brent. Thank you for everybody typing in your questions. This is really helpful. Ellen, yes, this presentation will be available. We are recording this and the presentation. We will kind of do a more condensed FAQ based on the questions and the responses so people can make sure they get the answers. That will be put up on the website, which is stpaul.gov/Kellogg-3. It may take a little bit with the holidays, so kind of give us to after the 4th of July holiday to make sure we can get everything up there. But we will make this presentation, this recording, and the FAQ or the Q&A available after this as well, and it will live on that website. Other questions that we've got here is from Mike. What will the new bridge be? How long is this new bridge expected to last? He's comment, I'm surprised the current bridge is only 42 years old and needs to be replaced.
Yeah, uh, that's a comment that I couldn't agree with more. We don't expect to replace a bridge after 42 years. Today's standard and really what is common in bridges over the last century is to expect 75 years of life from them. Um, at least in recent years, the design life for bridges is 75 years, and that's what we would expect this new bridge, that lifespan to be. We say 75 years, and to be honest, a lot of those will probably be pushed out to 100 years with proper maintenance. So, just to give a small amount of background, the reason that this bridge is being reconstructed after 42 years is that when it was designed in the 1980s, there were certain structural analyses and kind of load paths, let's call it, that were allowed by design codes. And what that resulted in were some kind of long overhanging cantilevers on the pier caps that support the bridge beams. And so the bridge was properly designed for its code of the time. But later in the 1980s and the 1990s, bridges that were designed in this fashion, where those load paths were assumed in that way, those bridges were started. I think that the code started to find, or the designers started to find that cracking was occurring, and over time those codes changed, and so when we came to this bridge to perform some work about 10 years ago, we actually discovered that there was a unique case here where those outside lanes of traffic didn't essentially pass today's codes and standards. It was valid at the time, but the code had changed, just like other safety measures and seat belts and everything else over time. And so we found that, and we made the determination, I guess, that we didn't feel comfortable maintaining traffic on the outsides of the bridge. That was kind of what drove this bridge to be reconstructed much, much earlier than we would expect, typical bridges, even bridges of the 1980s.
And Brent,
Yep.
sorry, if I cut you off there. Also,
Go ahead. Yep.
did you say again how long you expect this bridge to last?
Yeah, yep. It's designed for a life of 75 years. And with proper
Thank you.
maintenance, over those 75 years, we anticipate that this bridge would be standing for 100 years.
Great. Thanks,
Yep.
Brent.
Yep.
Continuing with more questions. Will there be any signage guiding drivers to stay on 7th Street until they reach Robert Street? Or is there going to be something like signs about local access only for Sibley, Wall, and Jackson?
That's a good question. I believe that there's a balance there between kind of what we call signage confusion or sign clutter. And the standard way of posting a detour route would be to pick up that detour route. Let's say going from the east to west, you'd pick that detour up at Mounds, and it would provide you with that detour arrow, a little panel that says Kellogg, have you turn left on East 7th Street, and then at major intersections. So maybe as you're crossing I-94 over 7th, and then again at Wakuta or somewhere, it would show another detour sign, straight, and then a left on Robert until you reach back to Kellogg, and then it says end detour. So there's no specific signage along that route that says, you know, peel off here for local access. But of course, those are public roads, they're open. Individuals, whether they're using an app service on their phone or whether they're just familiar with the area, of course, are able to, I guess, access those local roads along the way.
Thanks, Brent. Next question. Sorry, just got a weird pop-up on my screen. And so the next question is, can you talk a little bit about how emergency vehicles will get past the anticipated congested traffic on 7th Street? More buses will also be running on 7th Street and will plug up traffic. Can you address emergency vehicles and traffic flow?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent, possible. So I think that the simple answer is just that, emergency vehicles, that, cars are, other vehicles are required to, leave the traffic lane, leave the center traffic lane, provide space and room for emergency vehicles responding to emergencies. That would be similar to any congestion, like even on freeway or a divided highway, where there may be congestion and an emergency vehicle is looking to come through. And so there may be some slowage there, but those emergency vehicles do tend to find their way through the traffic. And then, yeah, buses on 7th Street, I recognize the comments, agree. And I would just add that during construction of the bridge, the Gold Line bus rapid transit that would and will normally use Kellogg Boulevard and the new bridge, that they are planning to reroute their buses, and that would be following the posted detour as well. So there will be additional bus traffic on 7th Street.
I'll just add to that, Brent, that one of the things that we work really hard is to really coordinate with Metro Transit, other agencies, MnDOT, and police and fire to make sure that if there's congestion, reoccurring congestion issues where there's some concerns like that, that we can address those as much as possible. So there is regular communication between the agencies, and especially with police and fire and emergency vehicles, to make sure that they can get where they need to go as well.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And also during design and also now in construction with our pre-construction meeting with the contractor, all of those external and internal departments are invited to and participate in those in that pre-construction meeting. And so if there are specific concerns to work out through the contractor, that is something that we do address as part of pre-construction.
Well, right now, there's no additional questions. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or there's a little button at with a hand that says raise. You can push that, and that will signal that you would like to verbally ask a question. So we'll just kind of pause, and if you've got what you need, you're welcome to stay on, or you've got what you need, you're welcome to go. Otherwise, you can stay on. We will be doing this presentation again for those who have jumped on a little bit later here. So we will repeat the presentation. So just checking here, not seeing any hands. And not any new questions. Well, great. Well, I will just kind of remind people that we have recorded this, and I will take all the questions that we got and kind of jot down the answers for people. And we will make this presentation available on the website, the project website, which is stpaul.gov /Kellogg-3. If you haven't already, there is an opportunity. It has all the project details, all kind of lots of things here from the art that Brent talked about to an FAQ and project documents and technical data, community feedback from way back when. So everything about this project is on this website. And down at the bottom, there is a sign up for Kellogg 3rd Street project updates. So if you aren't already signed up and want email and updates about this project, please go to the website, put your email in there, and we will send out updates throughout the project with this as well. And we also do update the project regularly, or the project website regularly once the construction begins. All right. Well, I think, Brent, if you want to just take a quick pause and we can reset the presentation kind of for the 6 o'clock for people who jumped on later and maybe missed something at the beginning. And just a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, type them in the chat, or you can hit the little hand up at the top that says raise and raise your hand, and you can verbally ask questions at the end of the presentation. Great. And if those of you are jumping off, thanks for joining us. And again, stay in touch with us. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. Our contact information is on the website, and you can always give us a call here at Public Works. Again, running into any issues, questions, again, please do not hesitate to reach out to us.